Hey everyone, ArchTalko here, welcome you back to Destiny. In the previous episode, we activated the last array, unknowingly unleashed a sentient AI onto the solar system, and all in all had a pretty good time. Listened to some awesome music, and it was a bomb diggity blasting time. So, this episode we're going to be tackling the patrol missions on Earth, and it's going to be a little bit different. I'm actually doing post-com, if you can tell, because this footage is slightly sped up. So, this is my idea, right? When I do these patrol missions, I want to have 2 episodes dedicated to every patrol for every planet in the game. The first of each of these patrol episodes is going to be dedicated I guess to kind of just talking about like the game's lore, giving more like insight to various game mechanics, summarizing the story and discussing it, theorizing about it in the comments below. So it's going to be a really laid back experience, and then I want the second episode of every patrol mission to actually, those ones will actually be live comm, and they're going to be going over like really exploring the different areas, going into different sections of each planet that aren't ever accessed during the story missions, kind of again like theorizing what their significance might be. All in all, just having a good time. The reason why, these second episodes aren't gonna come out right after the first ones, and the reason being, a lot of these like secluded, kind of secretive areas in these patrol areas are very high level. Like the enemies can sometimes be up to level 20, and believe me, if we try going there now as like level 7, which by the way I did do some off-screen grinding because believe it or not, next episode we're going to be tackling a level 8 strike, and it's gonna be so good. But yeah, okay, no, what I was saying before. If we try going to these areas now, we will get our butts handed to us. We will literally be one-shotted, and we literally will not be able to do a single thing to these enemies that are way over leveled. So, once we get to that level 20 mark, that's when I'm going to be going back and releasing those second patrol missions, and really just combing over every area with a really pretty, bedazzled, fine-picked tooth. So with that, what do you guys say we dive on in and we start talking about these patrols? So, there's 5 different patrol missions in the game. There's surveys, there's item missions, there's kills, there's scans, and there's VIPs. VIPs are probably the ones that you always want to go for first. Basically what you do, you just have to fight like a tougher version of an enemy. Normally they're really not that tough though, and they give much better reputation than the other ones. VIP ones give you 25 reputation, whereas the other ones only give you 10. So for the effort, they're great. Also, when you do 50 of them on like across any of your characters, all of the resources that you get from a planet will like have a chance to be doubled when you get them from the node, not from chests, or maybe from chests too. I'm not totally sure about that. Scan missions, basically like on the radar there will be like a little icon, and you have to go to it. You have to scan with your ghost. Bada boom, bada bing. That's literally all there is to it. They can be kind of a pain in the butt though, because they might take a while to actually get to, so I don't really recommend doing them that often. But what I do recommend is after you do the VIP missions, do those kill missions. All of them are literally just kill a certain amount of enemies. It's usually like 10, 15, or 20 enemies. It is so easy, and they are quite literally the fastest ones to take care of, like without a doubt. So, highly recommend the kill missions. In order, I always go VIP, kill, item, scan, and then survey. So, item missions, they're kind of like the kill missions, except you basically have to kill like a certain type of enemy, and there's like a random chance that they'll drop a certain item that you have to collect. Now, you don't usually have to collect as many items as you have to like kill in the kill missions, but they still end up usually taking a little bit longer, especially if like the area you're in doesn't really spawn that type of enemy. So there's always that. Last but not least, survey missions. They basically they're kind of like scan missions in the sense that they designate a certain area for you to go to, but instead of scanning it with your ghost, you just have to stand the spot for like 10 to 15 seconds. These ones definitely, out of all the missions, take the longest, so really don't recommend doing them unless you want to get just like a feel for an area and you want to do a little bit of exploring. Because if that's the case, they're a great way just to relax and just to find all the little nooks and crannies of a world. So yeah. Alright, so next up I want to start talking more about our character. There are 3 stats that every class has, and they are armor, recovery, and agility. So kind of what each of these 3 stats do. Armor affects the amount of damage your shield can take before you start taking damage to your health. Recovery affects the amount of time you have to wait before you have to... The more recovery you have, the shorter amount of time you have to wait before your health or your shield starts regenerating. So that can be really useful, especially in the heat of things. And finally, agility, it's not, as far as I know, it doesn't seem very useful. It affects your running speed and your jump height, so the more agility you have, the faster you run, the farther you slide, and the higher you jump. In certain situations, it can be useful, but I always find myself when I play, it doesn't matter what class I play as, I always try to get as much armor and recovery as possible and kind of just brush off agility, because between characters, I really can't tell that big of a difference between characters that have like terrible agility like Titans and characters that have awesome agility like Hunters. I don't know, I don't know, personally, there just doesn't feel like there's it doesn't feel like there's a big enough difference to really justify putting stats into agility. So really, in general, the stats don't like make or break any class. Like they don't make a huge difference, but they do. If you develop a stat enough, they make enough of a difference that you can kind of feel a difference between different characters. So, you know, just thought I should mention that. Next up, we're going to be talking about the different classes in the game. Again, there are Titans, Warlocks, and Hunters, but in addition to those 3, there are 2 subclasses for each class. When you first play the game, like I'm talking when you boot up the game for the very first time and you select your first class, Blade Dancer, Sunsinger, and Defender subclasses are actually locked off to you, and you can't play as them until you get to level 15 with your first character. Once you do, those 3 are unlocked, and you get the option of switching between them for every character you create after. So that's why when I started this character, I was able to immediately play as a Sunsinger. Now, I've already gotten into detail about like what I want to do with my Sunsinger character, so I'm not gonna really spend any more time going over that. While this is going on, if there are any perks you want to see in more detail, feel free to pause the video at any time, because I will be showing all the descriptions for the perks, but I'm not gonna necessarily go over every single one of them. So yeah, there is that. So let's talk about Voidwalker. Voidwalker Warlocks are it's like the default vanilla Warlock you start out with in the game. They're very offensive based, their super being Nova Bomb, which is a really powerful projectile that when you fire it pretty much disintegrates like everything in its blast radius. It's pretty awesome. So I know a lot of Voidwalkers typically want to put a lot of effort into buffing up their intellect, because again, having that super available as soon as possible can really be a godsend in just really any situation I can think of. Now, I will say I've played as a Voidwalker like a little bit, but not nearly enough to know like a whole lot about it, so there's not really a whole lot I can say about it build wise, but I do know at some point once I max out my Sunsinger subclass, I definitely want to go back and max out my Voidwalker one as well. So I might make an update video and kind of go over like different builds and tips I have for Voidwalkers, but as is, I just can't really say a whole lot about them. I like their super, man. Their super looks fantastic. They also have access to Blink, which is like an alteration to their double jump, which allows them to do like a short teleport, which in PvP is it is amazing if you know how to use it right. Fortunately for me, playing as a Blade Dancer Hunter a lot, I know how to use it. I know how to use Blink, so it is a good old time. I will say when I go back to level up Voidwalker, I'm definitely looking forward to that. So next up we have the Defender Titan subclass. This is the like secondary subclass for Titans. I don't know why I'm going like second and then first subclass, but that's how I'm doing it, so whatever. These guys, their super is strange because it's the only super in the game that isn't like at least like partly offensive. Like even our Sunsinger subclass, like even our super isn't very offensive, but it does boost our damage and it does allow us to spam our offensive abilities. So, Defender Titans are completely defensive though. What happens is their Ward of Dawn, which is the super, it creates this really pretty purple party bubble, alliterations, ooh, and it makes you completely impervious. God, there's too many P's, man. Way too many P's. Ooh. You can use the Ward of Dawn to buff up your allies, and you can either like give them shields when they pass through, you can buff their attack stats and make them like deal more damage to enemies temporarily, you can up their defense while they're in the bubble, you can make it so that the bubble blinds enemies when they go inside it. There's just, there's so many different things you can do with it. It just, it is a great, kind of underused subclass. It's probably the most versatile in both PvE and PvP, and I just can't recommend enough. There's also another perk that when you use the melee ability, you get like a temporary shield, but you can also make it so that your reload speeds are instantaneous, which for like hand cannons, which have notoriously bad reload speeds, is a godsend, and also looks really cool. So I love playing as Defender, man. Currently my Defender, I know that the perk tree doesn't look very filled out here, but the perk tree now, since I recorded this, is actually completely filled out. I'm actually halfway working on my Striker, and I'd say loved playing as Defender, and I'm also really loving playing as a Striker too, which, hey, segue, leads us to Striker. So the Striker is the offense version of the Titan. They are designed to take a lot of damage and to dish it right back. They are CDOT, and they are using Bide in his house. Their super, Fist of Havoc, basically they leap forward, they have this like giant shockwave, and it disintegrates everything in the radius. It actually reminds me a lot of Nova Bomb, except instead of being a projectile that you have to aim, it is a close-up attack that has a much better chance of actually trying to like hit the things that you're aiming at. So the advantages of using Nova Bomb are that you can use it from a distance. The advantages of using Fist of Havoc are that you really don't have to aim it. There's probably a good chance you're not going to miss with it. And if you do miss with it, what are you doing? What are you doing? So all in all, it's a really fun class to play as, and there's, it would take so much time just to go over all of the different perks that just completely change up the playstyle. But from my experience, out of all the classes you can play as, I feel like Striker Titans just have the most versatile set of like playstyles. Like there's one perk, and I'm just gonna highlight this one, even though there's a ton of other ones, where if you sprint for a certain amount of time, you get the shoulder attack, which in PvP like one-shots people, but in PvE does a ton of damage too. And also like when you're trying to jump to places, it's like a actually pretty decently long dash as well. And like that just completely changes up how you play. Like it's so fun. It just there's so many different things you can do as a Striker, and I might. Now that I'm talking about all these classes, I might have to just make like a separate video going over like each and every one, because there's so many different builds you can make with all these different characters. So, all in all, Striker Titan, it's a good old time. But, ladies and gentlemen, last but not least is my Jim Jam. It is my bread and butter. It is my peanut jam and good tidings to you all for all our good nights. Good tidings for people and a happy new year. It's the Hunters. I don't know what I'm saying. This was the first class I ever played as. They're definitely still my favorite. So what do you guys say we dive on in? Blade Dancers are like the one stealth class in the game. They specialize with various invisibility perks, and their super, Blade Dance, basically charges up the Hunter's Dagger with like lightning, and allows you to disintegrate pretty much everyone in one shot. What's also really cool is that the camera actually switches out to like third person mode, kind of like when you're exploring in the tower. And it just, it's so fun to play as the Blade Dancers, man. They also get access to the Blink Jump. They get Blink Strike, which is like a short range teleporting melee dash thing, which is really fun to use because a lot of people like never see it coming. It's just I love playing as Blade Dancer. I feel that it's not quite as useful in PvE as Gunslinger is, so I usually only use it in PvP. But there are times, like when I'm playing like a really hard strike, where I'll use the Blade Dancer, and I'll specifically go for the invisibility perks that allow me to revive people without being detected. So when it comes to being a team medic, Blade Dancers are the bomb diggity. So the other subclass, the one that I had to play as until level 15, is nothing other than Gunslinger. They are the class in Destiny that is like they're kind of dedicated to the hardcore like gun player, right? The person who doesn't want to focus on the magic or the punching people in the face. No, they just want to get to the nitty gritty. They just want to use their dang guns, man. So the Gunslinger super is the golden gun, where you summon a hand cannon made out of fire, which gets like, I don't know how it gets more bamfy than that, but it gets even better because you get 3 shots by default. I'm wearing a helmet, which gives me additional 1, so I get 4 shots. And every enemy you kill pretty much gets disintegrated inside a giant ball of flame. It's beautiful. It is exquisite. It is poetry just dripping down my chest. What does that even mean? I don't even know. I don't even know. They also get access to throwing knives, which is pretty cool, and trip mine grenades. Yeah, remember those grenades that we saw in the beginning of the game? Yeah, we get to use them. It's the only other time you'll see them in the game, ever. And they don't even look like that, but the concept's pretty much the same. So there's a lot of versatility, again, when it comes to Gunslinger, kind of like the Striker Titans. But the 2 biggest things that I love playing as Gunslinger are Chain of Woe and Gunslinger's Trance. Every time you get a precision kill, the Chain of Woe will increase your reload speed, and it stacks up to 3 times as long as you get a precision kill within a timer. I think it's like 10 or 15 seconds. Gunslinger's Trance is the same idea. It's a buff that stacks up to 3 times as long as you get within timer, but it increases the stability of your weapons. So if you play primarily by trying to get headshots, it is amazing, especially if you play with hand cannons, because man, again, them reload speeds are just horrendous. But with the Chain of Woe, more like Chain of Whoa, man. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? No, I don't either. That's good. With Chain of Woe, you're just in for a really good time. With Gunslinger's Trance, when you use weapons like pulse rifles or auto rifles, you're just in for a really good time. And in general, you use Gunslinger, you're in for a good old time. Use any class in the game because they're all so well balanced and so fun to customize. You're in for a good time. So that's the 3 classes. Yeah, you know, upon talking about this for like 10 minutes now, I've come to the realization that I might just need to make separate videos detailing all the different builds I've come up with for all these different subclasses, but that's just kind of the nitty-gritty of what each class does and what each one kind of specializes in doing. With the exception of White Walker, I don't really know that poop yet, but I will. I promise I will, at some point. So with the last part of this episode, I guess, I hope you've been enjoying watching these, watching this patrol. I know there's been a couple times I've just died from like the stupidest reasons, because AAA gaming content right here, right now, it is happening. I am becoming so much legend, so little time. So much lemon, man. I'm sour. I got the goods. So with all that out of the way, there's something I really want to address. One of Destiny's biggest complaints is that the story is like non-existent. And I have to disagree. See, the thing is, the structure of the game, I will admit, is very monotonous. It's basically, hey, listen to this conversation in the loading screen. Go to this location, use Dinklebot. Go to this location, use Dinklebot, end mission. That is pretty much how the entire story is given to you. And because of that, it kind of just falls to the back of your mind. Like, I noticed the first time I played through, after the first couple missions, I just stopped paying attention. I just was in it for the gunfights and playing with my friends, and I didn't read the dialogue, I didn't really listen to it, I didn't pay it any attention. But the thing is, it's actually kind of interesting. Like, I think it's actually very well made. And what's interesting too is that there's a lot of lore behind the game. And there's a lot of really cool side plots that supplement the main story. So I know that I wasn't alone when I played through for the first time. I know a lot of people just don't pay attention to it. And so for these patrol missions, I kind of just want to give like a little brief synopsis of like what takes place during these missions. So what do you guys say? Why don't we discuss the actual story itself, and then in the comments below we can kind of speculate on some things that are kind of left unanswered or kind of remain mysteries for now. Sound cool? Okay. Alright, so as the story begins, it shows Ghost the Ghost, otherwise known as Dinkelbot, otherwise known as Dinkelberg, being on the hunt by the Fallen, and he's scouring Earth for something. That something ends up being us. He's a ghost, and so he's this manifestation of the Traveler, and his sole duty is to find a guardian to help repel the darkness and bring light back to the last city on Earth. He finds us, he revives us from the dead, tells us that, you know, there's gonna be a lot that won't make sense to us, but just roll the punches, follow his lead, and do our best not to get killed.
I didn't bring you back just for you to die again. We have to move.
Together with our ghost, we briefly run into Rixus the Devil Archon, but more importantly, we find a better jump ship, which we use to narrowly escape the Fallen and head back to the last city on Earth. It's kind of assumed that like the ghost kind of fills us in on like everything that's taken place since we were dead. It's not really sure who our character was before we were revived by Ghost, but I guess it doesn't really matter because we're living in the now, we're living in the present, and our sole duty is to, well, protect the last city. So upon arriving to the tower, which is a citadel overlooking humanity's last output, the last place the Traveler is able to protect in its dying breath, we speak with the shipwright, who tells us that we can't leave Earth unless we have an NLS jump drive. The problem is, they don't have any spare ones on the tower, which means we have to go back to Earth to try to scavenge for one. When we go back, we discover this really damaged jump ship, and unfortunately, the drive was removed from it, presumably from the Fallen that were kind of surrounding it. Because as it happens, the Fallen are like innate scavengers. So the jump ship does contain coding though that leads us to this kind of like hub area that gives us a map which allows Ghost to locate an actual jump drive. It turns out though that the jump drive was located back where we found the jump ship, which is being guarded by Rixus the Devil Archon, which is one of the heads of the House of Devils, the faction of the Fallen that are currently on Earth. So we go there, we confront him, we defeat them, we get the drive, we go back to the tower, speak with the shipwright, she installs it, and while she's taking care of the repairs, we have a meeting with the Speaker. Now the Speaker is a very mysterious dude. I mean, with a mask like that, what are you gonna do, right? He very, very cryptically tells us that during this great struggle, the Traveler was crippled by its like long-term enemy, kind of mysteriously referred to as the Darkness. So there's a lot of theories as to what the Darkness actually is, and again, I want to make a couple lore videos, and one of them is kind of analyzing and theorizing on like what exactly the Darkness actually is. But the most important thing to know is that the Darkness cripples the Traveler, and in its dying breath created the Ghosts to protect the city, which I think I've said like 3 times now. Yay, redundancy! I'm a good storyteller. So, after encouragingly being told that the Speaker hopes that our Ghost chose wisely, and being, you know, having a jump drive and being an official guardian, having the tools to get the job done, we go back to the Cosmodrome to investigate the Fallen. So, according to Vanguard rumor, the Fallen were putting something under like really heavy guard, right? Something that might be like one of their leaders or like some deadly weapon. And we can't let them have any of that poop, man. So we go to the Skywatch, and we discover that it is like under heavy security. It is heavily locked down. When we open it up, we discover a kind of not so pleasant sight. The place has been heavily infested with these like wart-like nests that like squelch when you step on them. I mean, the place is disgusting. It's pitch black, but even more disturbingly, there's like motion all around you. And as you go in further, you get bombarded by none other than the Hive. The Hive are an alien faction that had waged war with humanity and had essentially completely taken over the moon. Right? They had like hollowed it out and like nested inside the moon. And that was kind of like our sacrifice in order to keep Earth safe. So seeing the Hive on Earth, not a very good sign, especially since the Hive themselves are kind of like, whereas we're like the manifestation of the Traveler's Light, the Hive are kind of like this manifestation of the darkness, right? They are a sign that the darkness is getting stronger. So not very good stuff is happening. We go in deeper, we defeat the Hive Wizard, who's kind of like the boss in charge of the Skywatch area, but unknowingly, because we're goobs, we kind of let loose the Hive on Earth. As it turns out, the Fallen were actually doing us a favor by containing the Hive within Skywatch. So, kind of begs the question, who's the good guy here? Because as far as I'm concerned, we just kind of unknowingly unleashed like an entire enemy abomination upon Earth, upon the exact same planet where the last safe bastion for civilization is. So, yeah, not too bueno. Not too good on our pot. Oh yeah. So yeah, after defeating the Hive Wizard, we obtain a set of war claws, which we take back to our Vanguard mentor to just kind of prove the Hive presence on Earth, which we're then promptly told, oh man, we need to go to the moon, we need to figure out what exactly the Hive are hatching, why they're coming to Earth, and if they're possibly trying to plan to invade us. So before we do that though, we go back to the Cosmodrome to further investigate the Fallen, because as it turns out, the Fallen were also trying to search for something on the Cosmodrome. As it turns out, we go to several terminals which lead us to this network that the Fallen were trying to get into. The problem is that there's some kind of sentient firewall blocking their entry into this network. That firewall was none other than Rasputin, a warmind AI that was developed during the Golden Age to help protect humanity during the collapse. It was rumored, again, I did actually synopse like this story in the episode itself, but just as a reminder, after coming into contact with Rasputin, we decided to further come into contact with him and try to figure out what exactly Dead Orbit's hope for connecting to like the other colonies around the solar system was. So we head to this place known as the Last Array. So with Rasputin's help, we managed to raise the array and fight off the Hive that tried to take it over. But then Rasputin double-crosses us. He takes over the Last Array, and he installs himself across the solar system. So, unknowingly, we kind of unleashed this sentient AI, and we don't really know what his motives are. We can't really communicate with him. He kind of refuses to communicate with us, and he basically played us in order to gain access to this Last Array. So, he now has the ability to spread his reach beyond Earth, and well, I don't know if it's good or not. I don't know if it's good. So that is like everything that's led up to where we are now. Now we're just kind of doing like these little menial tasks to help out the tower, and it is a good old time. So that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I definitely am looking forward to the next episode. We're going to be tackling Sepix Prime, doing the Earth Strike, and before I do that, I do need to level up a little bit more, try to get to level 8. But all in all, it's going to be a good old time. So anyway, that's going to be it for the day. Thanks for watching me play. And as always, I will see you next time for the good stuff. For the, yeah.